This kid, Alex, ask yourself a simple question. Is he trying to have a career as a philosopher? Is he trying to have a career as an author? Is he trying to have a career as a researcher or as a scholar? Is he spending time on university campuses right now because he's enrolled in classes or because he's working as a lecturer himself? Because he's working as a teaching assistant? Because he's engaged in ongoing research of some kind? No. I don't have to cite any source more obscure than his own website. His website that is basically his own name.com. What he is trying to do is the same thing that Michaela Peterson has already done. He is trying to become famous for being famous. He's trying to get paid just for the sound of his own voice. Now, let's take a step back. I don't have to ask you today whether or not you think he's trying to be a leader in the vegan movement. I don't really have to ask you what you think he's going to accomplish in the future of the atheist movement, in the future of British politics, for the future of ecology, global warming, any other tangentially related cause or heading. I don't have to ask you any of those questions. You can look back at what this guy did in the last 5 years. You can look at what he's doing right now, and you can get a pretty good sense of where he's going in the next 5 years. That much is obvious. He wants to be the next Michaela Peterson. And he doesn't particularly need his name to be attached to veganism or ecology or any particular political or cause or philosophical project. He has nothing to prove but his own viability as a podcast host. He's a celebrity for the sake of being a celebrity. Now, I have known men who finish their BA and just stay on campus. And I have known men who finish their MA and just stay on campus. And I've known men who just finish their PhD and stay on campus. And they make up reasons and stories and excuses. Sometimes the excuse is, well, I'm hoping a research position will turn up. I'm hoping I'm going to shake out my way into some program or put together a proposal or funding proposal, research proposal. I'm hoping there are some conferences I can attend. I'm hoping I can publish a paper. All of this and more, they may tell their parents, right? All of this and more, they may tell their former classmates when they bump into them on campus, right? You can imagine if you've already been renting the same apartment for several years, whatever your financial situation is, once you finish your classes, whether it's because you finish your BA or your MA or your PhD, it's pretty easy to keep that rolling for 4 months, for 6 months. It's pretty easy to just keep on living that student lifestyle without being a student. And men do this so that they can get laid. If you are a man who is just slightly older than the other students on campus, that's an advantage. If you're just slightly more self-confident, slightly more experienced, when the next year of new university students come in, the next year of new talent, of new opportunity shows up, there are a lot of guys who are very strongly motivated to hang around a university campus. And I have directly challenged some male vegan activists face to face in real life about why it is they're doing the things they do on a university campus when they're not a student there. And where I've been in a position to point out to them, look, I really am a student at this university campus. I'm old, but nevertheless, I've gone back to university as an old man. But I would not do the things that you're doing. I would not put myself in these social situations. I would not spend time with other students, fraternize with other students the way you are. You know what? What you're doing, it doesn't really look a whole lot like vegan activism to me. It looks to me like it's motivated by something else. How much money do you think Cosmic Skeptic has made out of the vegan movement in the past 5 years? Another way to put it, some of you will say, hey, he earned that money. That may be your perspective. First way I've posed the question is, if you do the math, if you add it all up, how much money has this fraud made out of the vegan movement in the last 5 years? And you know what another way is to put the question? How much has he siphoned off? How much has he taken out of the vegan movement that could have been and should have been spent somewhere else, donated somewhere else, that would have actually been productive, that would have made a positive difference in the lives of people, animals, the future of ecology, politics, you name it. Now, guys, I'm not a hypocrite. I don't single out Cosmic Skeptic for criticism this way. I've asked this question about innumerable leaders and figures and movements in the field. To give you an example, Dr. Greger. I don't think Dr. Greger is a fraud, but I think that more than $1 million a year have been wasted supporting his YouTube channel. I see no justification for there to be in excess of $1 million a year donated to Dr. Greger. On the contrary, I would think the amount of money he made from publishing his book in just 1 year would be enough to run a YouTube channel in perpetuity for a decade or several decades. I don't see any again, I've asked this question, where does the money go? And then at some point we have to ask, is this money in effect being siphoned off? It's being subtracted from that one pie chart. There's one pie chart, the total amount of opportunity, the total amount of energy, enthusiasm, initiative, and yes, y'all, money that exists in the vegan movement to be apportioned to different people, to different players in the game, to different projects, to different initiatives. And I do have an agenda because this guy, Cosmic Skeptic, he is my competition for my tiny piece of the pie chart, and he has been for years. I am, in effect, saying to you, not implicitly, but explicitly, why the hell would you waste your time, your energy, and your money supporting this schnook when you could be supporting me? Again, you can look back at what he's done in the last 5 years. You can look at what his MO is now. It's pretty easy to see where this is going in the next 5 years. And you can look at the extraordinary opportunities that have been handed to him. Again, he lists his most famous interviews on his website, so they're fresh in my mind. But he has been supported by some of the most famous people in the history of atheism. He has been supported and promoted by some of the most famous people in the history of veganism and animal rights. He's been handed those opportunities. And today, I don't think any of you are going to disagree with me when I say that he's squandered them. Here's where it gets kind of fucked up. He and I, we're competing for the same eyeballs here on YouTube, the same ears, the same audience. We're competing for the same money, and we are competing to control the future of the vegan movement, future of the atheist movement. There's at least two movements we're competing with each other for. We're both public intellectuals. We are both self-styled philosophers who write and publish books of philosophy, and specifically political philosophy, with the pretense of changing the world. He and I, in many ways, we're in exactly the same lane. We're competing for exactly the same thing. Okay? But you know what? We're not competing for the same women. If you listen to this guy's podcasts, if you watch his YouTube videos, you can just piece together the segments in which he's talking about his own sexuality. Guys, I am not going to claim that each and every statement he's made in a YouTube video or each and every statement he's made in a podcast is carefully cultivated to recruit his sexual partners. But some of them are. I know men, I know YouTubers, I know podcasters, I always have. And you know what? Guys have a way of putting it out there. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. And there was a time before I met Melissa. Melissa herself commented this recently. There was a time when I was coming on and I was broadcasting loud and clear. It wasn't so much in my YouTube videos. It was more in live streams. I used to do it on a different website called YouNow. But it was like, yeah, I am actively looking for my next girlfriend. That was the truth at the time. And I'd had a long period where I was kind of getting over my divorce from my first wife. And there were divorce lawyers involved and child custody battle involved, all kinds of terrible things. There was a period of time where it's like, hey, I'm not looking. And then there was a period of time I was like, okay, I'm looking. And some, the audience would even directly ask my questions. They would ask, are you looking for this in a woman? Are you looking for that in a woman? Could you be satisfied with this kind of woman? Could you be satisfied with that kind of woman? I would get questions from the audience, and sometimes it was women asking for themselves. Sometimes it was somebody asking for a friend. Mea culpa. Okay? Mea maxima culpa. But this dude, Cosmic Skeptic, if you put together those segments in which he's talking about sexuality, the picture of the man that emerges and the picture of his political agenda is terrifyingly dark. What this guy has to say about rape, please just take a moment to imagine the same words being said by someone who doesn't have a British accent. Someone who sounds like he's the captain of the football team in an American high school. And very often he is laughing, he is nervous when he's talking about sex. Well, just imagine it's not such a high-pitched, effeminate British laugh. Imagine it's a guy who's like, yo, well, the thing about rape is. This guy's view of human sexuality, what it is he's telling you he wants from women, and the position he's in now to go about getting it from one university campus to the next as someone who has been famous for more than 5 years. Okay? I've already asked you the question, how much money do you think he's taken away from the vegan movement in the last 5 years? How much money do you think he's taken away from the atheist movement is another great question. Let's ask another question. You think this guy is doing numbers? How many women do you think he's slept with in the last 5 years? Why do you think you don't know the answer to that question? This guy fills up so many hours of podcasts and videos. Do you think it would be absurd for us to expect some level of public philosophizing about his sex life, about what he is doing with this position of fame that has been so unearned and so utterly squandered over the last several years? For me, the main reason why I would want to have a romantic relationship with a viewer of my channel is that I actually don't enjoy talking about myself. Hard for you to believe if you're a member of the audience, but it's true. Give you an example. If I meet a woman who's never seen my YouTube channel, I meet a woman at the library, meet a woman walking down the street, I meet a woman just in public, face to face, and she likes the look of me, she strikes up conversation, something she likes me. Sooner or later, the conversation has to roll around to the fact that my father had 9 children. Now, again, some of you will know exactly where I'm coming from with this. Some of you will think, oh, gee, you never thought, like, if you come from a family that has 2 children, 3 children, you're an only child. If I meet a complete stranger who knows nothing about me, right? Maybe you can't imagine the shock when it's revealed that I come from such a big family. My father had 9 children. And of course, the next question is, oh, well, were they all with the same mother? And the answer is no. My father slept around with a whole bunch of different women. He got a whole bunch of different women pregnant. That's how we got up to 9 children. So right away, this woman then regards me as coming from a bad family, which I do. I'm not going to lie to her. I'm not gonna, yeah, you're right. It's a bad family. My father was a bad person, And then that's a conversation you have to have. So let me just ask. So again, if you think I'm lying here, think I'm a narcissist, you think I enjoy telling that story? Do you think I enjoy meeting a complete stranger and having to tell that story again and again and again? I remember a man I told this to. So I'm heterosexual. There was no sexual one of this. There's a man I met at a coffee shop. And when it was revealed that I came from such a large family, my father had 9 children, I remember the first thing he said was, oh, he was British. You don't come from one of those really skeezy Orthodox Jewish families, do you? Because he knew I was Jewish. And I remember I said to him, like, well, no, I don't. But given that you just asked the question that way, if I did, like, would you now expect me to beat the shit out of you? Like, why would you stay through that? Sorry, I'm simplifying what he said, but he said a series of really insulting, nasty, negative things about Orthodox Jewish families that have a lot of kids. It's like, well, no, actually, I'm an atheist, but your way of stating that question is so insulting that if I were an Orthodox Jew or if my family were Orthodox Jewish, we'd now kind of be in fisticuffs. Like, now I'm mentioning this because that's a guy who was unusually open about his concerns. If I meet a woman, doesn't matter, library, I meet a woman out in the wilderness, walking around the city. She knows nothing about me. She's never seen my YouTube channel, right? I've got a lot of explaining to do about my family. And then again, once they just know how many kids. Oh, okay. So were your parents crazy Christian fundamentalists? That guy asked about Jewish. Were your family, are they Mormons? Are they some kind of crazy religious cult? Like, what explains this aspect of the family? Now, then you get into some other stories about me. Okay, so no, actually, my parents were communists. They were left wing. Okay, but I'm not. Now I have to explain that. No, I'm not a communist. I'm not a left. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, how left wing are you? Or how? Well, oh, so are you right wing? Well, what? Okay, so there's a whole series of questions here. I would be happy never having that conversation again, even once in my life. Even if there are no other factors involved with meeting and seducing, or meeting and being seduced by a fan of your YouTube channel, right? If and when that happens, right? I'm talking to someone who knows me, talking to someone who respects me. I'm talking to someone who already knows a lot of things about my life story and background that are really difficult for both people to communicate. Like, it's not just difficult for me to talk about, it's different for other people to listen to. It's difficult for me. It's not just difficult for me to talk about, it's difficult for the other person to hear. It's difficult for them to listen to. It's difficult for them to relate to, right? Like, it's a very difficult way to start up any kind of friendship or relationship, sexual or otherwise. Right? So I know a lot of the emphasis on fame and having sex with your fans, some various elements of corruption and coercion, and the way in which these things are regrettable and destructive and what have you. Okay. Among the things I really hate about Cosmic Skeptic is that he repeatedly describes rape as extremely enjoyable for the rapist. He's made this claim 100 times in YouTube videos, in podcasts. And then he contrasts it to the relatively small amount of suffering for the rape victim, and he may fill in some details. And the reason why he does this again and again is that he subscribes to and propounds this pseudo philosophy called, I think he would say consequentialism, but he's certainly part of the utilitarian school of philosophy, where he believes that if there's more pleasure than there is pain, the evils are justified. So what this means is, from his perspective, and he said this many times, as long as the rapist enjoys the sex enough, then the suffering of the victim is justified. This has been a lifelong crusade for this guy on social media. I'm going to return to the question I asked earlier. Do you think this guy is trying to set himself up for a career as a professor, as a scholar, as a researcher? Do you think he's trying to set himself up for his career as a philosopher? He's trying to be Joe Rogan. He's trying to be Michaela Peterson. He's trying to be Jordan Peterson. This philosophy, this theory, imagine a guy with an American accent. Sounds like the captain of the football team, laughing nervously and saying this stuff to you about rape. Yeah, no British accent without this effeminate demeanor. How does it sound? This offends me and bothers me many different levels for many different reasons. Okay. I've got to tell you something. And guys, some of you do not have the experience to know this, and some of you never will have the experience to know this. Okay. Great sex is sex with someone who loves you. It's sex with someone who respects you. It's sex with someone you trust and who trusts you. And you know what? You know what really puts it over the top? You know what's really the icing on the cake? Is when you are at such a high level of skill and the two of you together have such great chemistry that it's the best sex they've ever had in their life. And they even feel a kind of gratitude or amazement because you've given them so many orgasms or such great orgasms because the sex is so fantastic. Okay? That is great sex. And what I have just described to you will never occur, never, in the context of rape. Never. I'm making the claim that rape is never good sex and is never great sex, even for the rapist, let alone the victim. And I'm not a utilitarian. I'm not a consequential. I don't subscribe to any of these schools of thought. So I don't care, even if you're talking about one of these hypothetical scenarios in which the victim is asleep and doesn't wake up and doesn't even notice they're a victim. No, it's still bad and evil and wrong, and it's illegal for a reason. You should go to jail for it. I have absolutely no sympathy for the rapist, no matter how much you want to increase the pleasure on one side of the calculus and minimize or dismiss the pain on the other. And again, it's just childlike, the stupidity and malice of what he's doing in presenting this thought experiment to the world again and again and again. And he is communicating to the audience what kind of a man he is, morally, sexually, aesthetically. He is very effectively communicating to his enormous audience what kind of women who are into what kind of thing he'd like to be meeting up with. And again, just to be fair, you could say that every single book review I've ever done on my channel accomplishes that in effect, right? And by the way, I think there are tons of women who have never gotten in touch with me and never will, because they've seen the book reviews on my channel and they think I would judge them to be too stupid. And they're right. They're right. A lot of women are just not intelligent enough to have a cup of coffee with me, let alone to have sex with me. They're intellectually intimidated, and that's good. Stay intimidated. Don't flirt with me. Fuck off. It's fine. I'm totally comfortable with intimidating my audience into silence, male and female. If you're intimidated, I'm comfortable with that. I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable with that. But if you find me intellectually intimidating, that's probably a sign that we shouldn't talk. But implicitly or explicitly, it's true. You are always communicating to the audience. You're always reaching out to the audience and saying, this is the kind of person I want to meet, whether it is merely for the sake of friendship, for the sake of being colleagues and coworkers, whether it's for the sake of sexuality or having kids or getting married or whatever it is you're looking for. Now, I had a funny experience a few months ago where there was a woman who called me, and I just forget now, was it 2:00 in the morning in my time zone, or was it 2:00 in the morning in her time zone? And this is a woman, I hadn't heard anything from her in a long time, but she's someone who, to my knowledge, she'd known my YouTube channel for like 5 years. She's someone I had talked to first before I met Melissa, before I got in this relationship I'm in now. And so I have this thing, I have this sort of call missed message. And the next day, I think I sent her a funny voice message or something. I was like, I was joking about exactly what this was. I said, oh, gee, could it be that at 2:00 in the morning last night you were drunk and for some reason you were thinking about me and you called me and tried to get in touch with me? And she joked along back, but she was also being honest. She said, yeah, she said she refused to be ashamed of it, but she was drunk and she was thinking amorous thoughts about me and tried to call me up at 2:00 in the morning after getting drunk. Now you can already guess there's no possibility. This is not the kind of person I could have any kind of relationship with. But I had a phone call with her, and I think this was the next one. I think she was hungover when she had this phone call. I think it was the next morning after this, and or the next afternoon maybe. But anyway, and what shocked me was this was someone who supposedly knew my YouTube channel for years, and she knew nothing about me. I was like, wow, this is someone who's had a crush on me for all these years, but it turns out it's just based on appearance. And one of the things that struck me in that conversation was exactly what I mentioned before. She didn't know I have 8 brothers and sisters. She didn't know my father had 9 kids. She didn't know my parents were communists and that my parents had. She didn't know any of that basic information about me. Anyway, so I told Melissa all about this. I think I told Melissa 5 minutes after it happened. Maybe I told her while it was happening. I forget. But I told Melissa this and I laughed and laughed. I said, "Can you believe this? Like this woman, she is a woman now. I mean, this has been many, many years. This woman has had a crush on me since before I met you, Melissa. She's had some lingering attachment to me, some interest in me for all these years, right? And Melissa's heard about it before. Once every so many years, I'd hear a peep at her, get a couple messages. And now she gets back in touch with me. And it turned like what? So what? It's just based on my appearance for all these years. Like you haven't been watching my YouTube videos. Like You haven't listened to the live streams. You don't know anything about me. So, like, what am I to you? What is it you have a crush on? Like, what is it? My photographs on Instagram? It's crazy. It just came as a total surprise. Okay, so I'm just indicating the types of absurdities they're packaged in the situation. Okay, I do not vilify Cosmic Skeptic for this. I don't vilify anyone for this. What most people want, whether they know it or not, is to be appreciated, right? And if you can meet someone where you start on the first date with them appreciating you, they appreciate you intellectually because they've been watching your YouTube videos, even if it's just for 3 months. Like, let's say Cosmic Skeptic meets some woman on a university campus and she says, hey, I first discovered your YouTube channel just 3 months ago. But she's already listened to the sound of his voice for 5 hours, 10 hours. You add up the YouTube videos and podcasts. Think of the level of appreciation she has for him. And he doesn't have to earn that, right? When you date like a normal person, when you sit down at a coffee table in a coffee shop with someone, they haven't seen any of your YouTube videos, and they have suspicion toward you, they have fear, hostility, and you're just this, they have no appreciation for them, no respect. Okay. I'm in a position to talk about this. All right. I used to be married to my first wife, and I was on Cambridge University campus, Oxford University campus. I was on university, and just once, University of London campus, went down to London, where I gave a lecture. I've given lectures on these university campuses, and I've also just been physically standing on them. And my first wife and I used to laugh about this because women would really throw themselves at me. These women would really try to get at me. And I had no YouTube channel. I had no podcast. I was not famous. I was creating my own fame just at that time. I was really working at the time as a researcher and a writer. It was really the written word and the library. It took all my time. But pretty much everywhere I went, my wife was standing like right next to me. And like we might be holding hands. Like we were but even if we were holding hands, we were just really close. And my wife and I would laugh at this. And it's like, you'd think I was telling people this was my sister. Because like the first thing I'd say is, oh yeah, my wife's in anthropology. Like in almost every conversation, like the first or second thing that gets mentioned, even just mentioned briefly in passing, is my wife does X. And even if she's not standing there, it gets mentioned, but most of the time she's standing right there. And my wife saw this so many times. These girls, some of them in master's degree programs, some of them in PhD programs, most of them PhD programs, I recall. But yeah, I don't know. I probably don't remember which ones were just in a master's program. They would have this weird tunnel vision where they just ignore the wife and try to flirt with and hit on the man. So my ex-wife was a very unusual character, and she didn't get freaked out or angry about it. She found it quite flattering. I think she felt like it increased her social status that there were all these women who were wanting to get at her man. But my point is, look, I know what it's like to be on those campuses in England. I know that culture, those universities. I've been there, and I've had women throwing themselves at me. Okay. I did give lectures. Okay. I published articles. I spent a lot of time going to libraries and research institutions. I had a lot of time on my hands. I was not a student. I was married to a student. That's why I was there. Long story short, right? I was in a position to be doing numbers. Okay. So I'm asking you the question seriously. Over the last 5 years, how much money has this guy taken out of the movement? And how many women do you think he's slept with? All right. For a guy like Cosmic Skeptic, the process has become the product. His fame has become an end in itself. If you donated money to him, you can't get your money back. If you gave your pussy to him, you can't get your dignity back. This guy was the worst kind of fraud. And from my perspective, he screwed his way into the vegan movement and he's going to screw his way out again. He screwed his way into the atheist movement and he's going to screw his way out again. He is trying so hard to be the next Matt Dillahunty. And the tragedy is, we all know he just might succeed.